it's Christy with the Chirp YouTube channel. I have been having a lot of trouble in my classroom with a student in particular who is having a lot of trouble with self-regulation. He's very impulsive, he is overactive and unable to manage his own self. So I wanted to gather some research together and talk to you a little bit about hyperactivity and impulsivity. If you have a child or a student who is hyperactive, who is impulsive, who has difficulty listening, difficulty controlling himself, then you're probably thinking, I know, it's attention deficit disorder. It is a medical problem, and if we get him on medication, then he will be just like all the rest of my students and everything will be perfect. I am here to tell you that jumping right to that conclusion is a terrible idea, because there is a lot of science that shows that there are other things that can lead to these symptoms, that can lead to kids being hyperactive, that can lead to kids having difficulty with impulse control. And we do not want to drug our kids if there's something going on in their lives that we can remove instead. I would love it if the strategies that I am about to talk through with you would become the first line treatments for these kind of symptoms, rather than rushing to some sort of a doctor and getting a prescription. We are damaging our kids' brains. There is a lot of science that shows that kids' brains do not bounce back after we put them on psychoactive drugs like Ritalin or other sorts of drugs that we typically use to manage children's behavior. We want our children to learn the skills that they need to know in order to manage themselves. We don't simply want to drug them. I realize that there are some of you out there who have children who are on medications. I'm not telling you that you made the wrong decision. I would like you to consider some of the additional strategies that you can use, and there are some cases in which children can be backed off those medications. Please do all of this in conjunction with your doctor. I am not a doctor, and even if I were, I would not give you medical advice over the internet. What I will do for you today is tell you about the science that is out there and how I've seen it affect kids as well. Once again, please go to your own doctors. Find a good doctor who believes in you and who believes in your child's ability to heal and to learn new skills, rather than just saying, we'll get you out of this right now, here's your prescription. Prescriptions are not the answer to everything, and they especially are not the answer to behavioral difficulties that need new skills. Kids need to learn new skills. Attention deficit disorder is typically divided into a number of subcategories. The main three, although there are some doctors who have expanded this list to 7 or more different types of subcategories, I'm just going to focus on 3 today, and they are the inattentive, the hyperactive, and the mixed. Inattentive is where you might see a child who seems to be listening, and then it turns out that he had something completely different going on in his head and he did not grasp anything that you were saying. These kids are usually missed because they're not overactive. They're just very easily distracted by their own thoughts or by things going on inside their own selves. And we can help that with some treatment strategies and with some teaching strategies. The hyperactive type is the type that you probably think of where the child is racing around, pulling things off walls, messing things up, dumping things out, unable to sit still, can't sit still even to eat a meal, loud, making jokes all the time. The kind of kid that you think, whew, that's really tiring. And you wonder, how am I going to teach this kid anything? Because he can't even focus on something for 5 seconds. The combined subtype is obviously a combination of the inattentive and the hyperactive type. And so that child can show symptoms of both of those types. There are some genetic contributions to why kids would have more difficulty with attention, and some of these are genetic. So if a parent has attention difficulties, then a child is more likely to have them as well. Low birth rate, cigarette smoking in the mother, and also alcohol and drug exposure in utero. And excuse me, it's a very cloudy day here. So if the lighting changes kind of drastically, I try to use as much natural lighting as possible when I film videos. And so the natural lighting is changing a lot today, but I really would like to get this video filmed. If it bothers you, close your eyes and just listen to the melodious tones of my voice, perhaps. I'm sorry if it bothers you. I will do my best to control the weather and manage the cloud cover. There also appear to be some environmental contributions to difficulty with self-management and attention. And I'm going to talk about some of these in more detail. But the first one to be aware of is screens. As an example, a TV, an iPad, a computer, a laptop, a cell phone. All of these types of screens, especially before 3 in a child's life, are related to more difficulty with attention and managing attention wisely. Please check out my video on screen time and language development. The studies are not there yet as far as overall development because screens haven't been around that long, especially cell phones, and especially at the level kids are getting them now. But we do know that screen time before the age of 3 is associated with slower language development and more language delay. That's bad. We also know that screen time seems to be associated with attention problems. We don't know if that's just because of the nature of the fast-paced world in which we live and how that plays out online, or if it's something to do with the electromagnetic stuff that happens in electronic devices, or something to do with the light that comes out of the devices. There's still a lot of science that needs to be done in this area, but it's a big deal. And so if you are concerned, this is one area to keep under tight control. Don't allow your kids so much screen time. Other environmental contributions are cigarette exposure in a home, toxic exposure to lead, mercury, those kind of things, sleep deprivation. We're going to talk about that one in great detail, and also food additives and foods in general. There are also physical contributions that we need to talk about, and these are such things as dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical in our brain that gives us pleasure. We like when we get a hit of dopamine produced by our brain. And most of us get regular hits of this throughout the day, from eating something tasty, from succeeding at a task, from wearing new earrings. Whatever brings you pleasure, you're getting little hits of dopamine from those. People who tend to get diagnosed with attention deficit disorders typically don't get as much dopamine from those daily activities as a typical person would. They tend to seek that dopamine hit in other ways, being overly active or doing things that might seem dangerous to us are likely to seem more appropriate to them. They need more dopamine. They need more of what makes us happy to make them happy. Bigger hits of the same neurotransmitter. So we need to find ways to incorporate that into their lives. Maybe more sports that have a little bit of a thrill, maybe louder music, maybe louder everything. They just probably need more of what we think is pleasurable for them to get the same response. While we are mentioning attention difficulties, I want to say that we have way too high of expectations of our young children. The rule is that a child should be expected to attend to a task for 1 minute per year of life until school aged, which would be 6, and then 20 minutes per year of school. We're starting with 20 minutes at the age of 6. Before that, it's 1 minute per year of life. So a 1-year-old can only be expected to sit and listen for 1 minute. There are some kids, especially girls, who are going to sit and listen to you read a whole book, or who are going to have an ongoing conversation with you. But sitting and teaching a child something, you can't expect more than 1 minute per year of life, and then 20 minutes per year of school. So it starts ramping up pretty quickly once they hit school age. And that's where a lot of people notice difficulties in their kids, because the teacher is saying, the other kids are okay and yours isn't. So this is where we need to intervene. The first area I'm going to start with is the one where there has been tons of research, and this one actually shocked me the most when I learned about it in a course that I took way back when. And this is sleep. Did you know that children and adults not getting enough sleep demonstrate all the symptoms and become diagnosable as people with attention deficit disorder? That's really shocking, because let's assume a child isn't getting enough sleep, exhibits some symptoms of hyperactivity, difficulty managing self, over-emotionalness, seeking more dopamine type behaviors, and gets put on a drug that affects his brain chemistry for the rest of his life. When, if we had addressed the sleep issues, that wouldn't have been necessary, because perhaps he would have not displayed those behaviors any longer. I definitely don't want to be medicated because of behaviors that I demonstrate when I am sleep deprived. I know that my behaviors are not okay when I am sleep deprived, and I don't want people to judge me based on that. So let's make sure, first of all, that our children are sleeping well. And we can't just tell this based on they go in their room at 8 at night and they come out at 7 in the morning. That doesn't mean that a child is sleeping all the way through the night, or even 8 hours, as we hope most children sleep. A child could have sleep apnea, which is where the airway becomes obstructed during sleep, which definitely affects oxygen supply to the brain. A child could have allergies. A child could be sleeping but not reaching the appropriate depth of sleep, the appropriate cycles that we need in sleep to keep our brain healthy, due to caffeine, due to screen time, due to all sorts of different things. And so if you suspect that your child is having difficulty with attention and self-management, have a sleep study. Go to the doctor, say, I think my child's having trouble with sleep and I would like a sleep study. No big deal. Then you will know what your child's sleep is, and you will know if he's doing okay in that area, or if that's an area you need to work on more. I did a whole video about sleep hygiene, and I'll put a little link right up there so you can go see it. Sleep hygiene is just like oral hygiene or body hygiene, where we regularly practice some habits that help keep that area of our life in good shape. Sleep is no different. We need to practice patterns that will help us get the kind of sleep that we need. And that video will give you some good hints on how to do that in your own life or in your child's life. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about food. Garbage food doesn't lead to sleeping well, and it definitely doesn't lead to good behavior or good self-management skills. I'm much more impulsive when I have been eating poorly. I'm not nourished well. My brain doesn't have what it needs to help me control myself. And it is the same for your child. Keep in mind that the more fruit and vegetables, the more whole grains, the more legumes, which are beans, peas, split peas, lentils, that kind of thing, and also, of course, seeds and nuts that your child eats, the better her brain is going to function, the easier time she's going to have managing herself. Those kind of plant foods help us keep our blood sugar stable. They help us keep our body working the way that it should work. Our digestion works better when we have not so much animal fat, not so many animal products in our diet. Our digestion is where we get our energy and where we get the neurotransmitters that we need for our brains to work well. Many of our neurotransmitters are produced in our gut, in our intestines. This was also a shock to me when I learned this, and it makes sense that when our gut is in bad shape, if your child has diarrhea or chronic constipation, remove dairy and remove a lot of those other animal products that your child is eating. Yes, fish counts as an animal product. Remove them and see what that does for your child's digestion. Once your child's digestion starts to get better, then a lot of times the brain issues start to get better too, because more neurotransmitters are able to be produced in a healthy way and work the way that they're supposed to work. Choose organic foods whenever possible. It's still better to eat fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes and seeds and nuts, even if you can't get the organic ones due to cost or availability. But pesticides are linked to difficulties with brains, difficulties with attention span, difficulties with behavior. We want to get as many of those pesticides out of our children's diets as possible. This is yet another reason why I don't recommend eating animal products. Animals, if you think about it, a cow eats grass, and it eats a lot of grass. If we eat some lettuce, we're hopefully going to eat organic lettuce, because that's one of the more important organic products to get. Check out the Dirty Dozen. I'll leave that down below. The Dirty Dozen are products that you should always get organic if you can, because they carry high levels of pesticides and other nasty stuff that you don't want in your produce. If you think about it, I eat the lettuce. Great, I have eaten the lettuce. If there were pesticides on that lettuce, I have eaten a small amount of pesticides. Now think about a cow that weighs 2,000 pounds. That's a lot more pounds than me. And that cow is going to need a lot more green stuff to keep up that huge weight. That cow eats tons and tons and tons of grass. And it eats all of the pesticides that were on that grass. Even if there was not very much in the pesticide department, the cow still ate it, and it accumulates in the tissues of that cow. And then the cow gets killed and chopped up, and we eat the cow. And we also eat what the cow ate. And the cow ate grass. And even if it was an organic cow, the grass probably still has some pesticides in it. And those pesticides are now in me because I ate the cow, and therefore I ate what the cow ate. This is one of the reasons why I don't recommend animal products, especially to kids with developmental delays, but in fact to anyone, especially if we have health concerns. We eat whatever it is that our food ate. And the pesticides bioaccumulate. That's what it's called. So the more of a product that an animal ate, the more of that dangerous substance is in the animal's flesh. So consider that as you're picking and choosing foods. I will list a bunch of good sources of nutrition information down in the information box that you can check out if you'd like. I know it seems like a big shift to make, but think about your children's brain health and your own health as well, and consider if maybe shifting a few things here and there might not be worth it to you. Also, in the area of food, it's very important to remove food colorings and preservatives. There is a good amount of research that food colorings especially, and also preservatives in food, lead to attention deficit difficulties. They cause kids to be hyperactive and to have poor impulse control. And we do not want to contribute to those issues. We have so many kids who are dealing with these issues that we really need to be taking better care of our children. Not just you, but I mean as a country, as a world, a global population that has tons and tons of kids in it. We need to protect them. Most countries do a much better job of keeping toxic chemicals out of their food supply so that their children are safe. I wish that we in the US did a good job at that as well, but we clearly do not. So you as the family, you as the teacher, are going to have to do that for your students, for your children. And that's okay. That's part of our job. Guard our children. We can do a better job than we have been, and we can definitely take this one out of the list of things that might be affecting our kids. By the way, I have put links to the studies that I used as references for this video in the box down below the video. Please go down there, read the studies for yourself, convince yourself that what you're doing is worthwhile. I will also put some of my favorite recipes, some of my favorite snacks. Don't forget to go down there and look at them, because I want you to be informed. I don't want you to just trust what I say. I want you to read it for yourself. Number 3, movement. We don't sleep well when we don't move around very much. It is difficult in different climates to get enough movement into a child's day. I know a lot of schools don't have enough recess time for kids to run around. Maybe they've cut out physical education classes. This is something that we as their families, or we as their treatment providers, need to take into account. A kid isn't going to sleep well if he's been sitting all day. I had to address this issue in my own life. I have some health concerns that I've been dealing with for a long time, and yet I knew that I needed more movement in my day. There are certain kinds of exercise that are not appropriate for me because I have limited energy, and I need to be very cautious with not overdoing it, or I have a lot more problems. I eventually decided to purchase an indoor exercise bike, and now for an hour a day I sit on my exercise bike. I can browse the internet, I can read a book or a magazine, I can watch television if that's what I so choose, and it is proving to be a much better type of exercise for me than anything else. I have been doing yoga for a long time, many years, and I recently added qigong to my practice, but none of these really gets my heart rate up. And I noticed since adding the time on the exercise bike that I am sleeping much better. I didn't have a problem sleeping before, but I'm sleeping much deeper now, and I'm not having the same kind of crazy dreams that I had before, which is kind of nice. If you live in an area of the world where the weather is nice all the time, then send your kids outside, go to the park, play dancing games in your backyard, do hide and seek, have your kids just go outside for an hour every day, and I think their sleep will be better. For those of us who live in a very hot climate, or for those of you who live in a very cold climate, it's a lot more difficult to get that kind of activity because it's either too hot or too cold to be outside for long periods of time. I understand that, and that is why I decided on the exercise bike idea for myself. In the Arizona desert, I would have to wake up at 4 in the morning even to get an 80-degree walk, and even 80 degrees is still a little warm for my particular self if I'm gonna be walking at a pace that gets my heart rate up. I don't do well in the heat health-wise, so I needed to find a different option. If you would like to know which exercise bike I purchased, I'll put a link to it down below, and maybe I'll even do a little review of it or something for you because it's pretty fun and I'm enjoying it. Also nice is that I have a pretty minimal, smallish home, and while I love it, it does not leave a lot of room for extraneous equipment. And this particular bike folds up, and I'm able to squish it in my master bedroom closet so that I don't have to look at it all the time, because design is very important to me and my home is carefully curated, and I do not wish to have an exercise bike, no matter how well designed, sitting out in my living room all the time. If that's important to you, this would be a good device for you to purchase. Let's also talk about nature. Movement in nature is shown to help with self-regulation and attention management. There's something in the Japanese culture called tree bathing, which is walking through a forest and enjoying the surroundings around you. If you can't get to a forest, perhaps it wouldn't hurt to get a forest DVD and put it on in the background in your home. I know it's not quite the same thing. We're not getting the same chemicals from the trees. We're not smelling them or smelling the wind. but it's better than nothing. And I have some favorite nature DVDs I will put down below for you. I should also mention, while we're talking about movement, that some people with attention difficulties benefit from extremely intense exercise. This might include kickboxing or riding a bike really, really fast, or jumping on a trampoline as high as they possibly can. They really sometimes need very, very vigorous exercise to get that dopamine hit that the rest of us might get from 20 minutes of lightly sweating. Keep that in mind if you're noticing that your child is moving around, but your child isn't getting any benefit from that exercise, isn't sleeping better, haven't noticed a difference in behavior. Try exercise that's a little bit more intense, or a lot more intense, and see what happens. My brother has difficulties with attention span, and he exercised all the time. He did lots of weightlifting. He's really buff, and didn't notice much of a difference with his attention difficulties until he started running, fast running for like 4 miles a day. So he needed a lot more exercise than probably a typical person would. Keep that in mind when you're dosing your child with movement. Next, I want to talk about mindfulness. The brains of people who have diagnoses of attention deficit disorders show an overstimulated frontal cortex. That's the part of your brain that makes decisions, that helps you filter what comes out of your mouth, and helps you do the wise thing. If that area is overstimulated, it's going to be difficult for it to work properly, and those pieces aren't going to fall into place so easily for that person. One of the things that can calm down overstimulated areas of the brain is mindfulness and meditation. Meditation and mindfulness are not necessarily connected to any particular religion, and so if you are of a non-Eastern religion and it's kind of freaking you out to think about meditation, don't. Think about it as sitting still, letting your brain percolate. Usually we try to focus on something in meditation for a period of time and just keep bringing our minds back to that thing. It can be our breath, which is what a lot of people use because it varies with the day and with our own health and with our allergies that day, or whatever the case may be. So we simply sit in quiet and pay attention to how the breath feels going in and out of our nose, or how it feels on our throat, or how it feels as our chest rises and falls. It could be a scripture. It could be the name of Jesus, if that is what works for you. I have a particular passage that I repeat to myself regularly to sort of redirect myself and get myself back on track. Whatever that is, help your child pick something like that, and then sit in stillness and practice continually bringing attention back to that one thing. The art of practicing bringing our attention back to one thing is going to help our children to learn how to redirect their own attention. Bringing our attention back to one thing is going to strengthen the muscles that children need to manage their own attention and to continue to focus on appropriate things. And we definitely want to strengthen those muscles. I have a video available for you for kids on meditation and on practicing those skills, so check that out if it's helpful to you. There's also a really great app called Headspace that you can use, and it's 10-minute chunks of meditation, directing your mind, practicing managing your own brain and helping your brain to calm down and relax and not be so overstimulated. It's a great app, and there's a really funny little explanation of it that I will link down in the description box. Another area I want to talk about is water. There is good science showing that fluoridated water can lead to behavior difficulties, and there is good solid science as well that shows that kids who drink fluoridated water have lower IQs. I'm astounded by this. I don't understand why we still put fluoride in water. I would rather have no teeth than to have lower IQ. I don't get it. Buy a water filter that filters out fluoride, and don't use fluoridated toothpaste if you can help it. Kids do swallow that stuff. Find one that your dentist approves of, but that doesn't have fluoride if you can. After all of those things have been said, we are now at the point where we want to talk about specific skill training. A lot of the time, kids who have difficulty managing their attention and their focus don't know skills to help themselves. People kind of do things for them because they're kind of flaky, and they need more structured supports. I recommend cognitive behavioral therapy. Find a therapist who can do some cognitive behavioral therapy. This is where we pay attention to what our thought is, what the behavior is that is not working for us, and then we structure ways to help ourselves change that behavior. It's very practical. It is not sitting on a couch and talking to someone about your feelings. It is planning out how you would like to change to bring about what you would like to see. It's very practical, and I highly approve. Speech language therapists can help a lot with executive function difficulties. Executive function is what happens in our frontal lobe, the part that is overstimulated in people who get diagnoses of ADD, attention deficit disorders. Executive function skills can be taught. Difficulties in that area can be treated. We can teach the skills that these kids need to know, and speech language pathologists who specialize in this area can be especially helpful. I also recommend social groups, getting together with other kids maybe who have similar difficulties, with a therapist present, and then especially a speech language pathologist, and then talking about how those difficulties are impacting their lives in negative ways and how they might change some of those behaviors and work on learning new skills. There are also activities you can work on at home that will help with executive function, and I have put a link in the box down below where you can find those. I also would like to mention at this time that a lot of kids who have difficulty managing their attention and focus also have difficulties in sensory areas. They may be hyposensitive. They may need more sensory input to feel calm and regulated. Or they might be hypersensitive. They get too much and they need a little bit less. Any difficulty in the area of sensation and our sensory system can cause behavioral challenges. And so this is something that you want to consider. I will put some links to sensory information down below, and also you can check out that video there, which will help you sort of assess your child's sensory system and if you need to consider getting some support in that area. Typically, the kind of professional that would help you in that area is an occupational therapist. But make sure that your occupational therapist of choice is one that is a specialist in the area of sensory processing. Most of them are not. They do not get training on that, at least most of them don't, in their graduate school programs, and so they need training after graduate school to be specialists in that area. Be careful who you pick. We also want to use as many support strategies at home as possible. Some of these things would be like noticing when your child is doing something right, rewarding it, complimenting it, commenting consistently on that thing that you want to see more of. Whatever we celebrate gets repeated, so celebrate all of the good things. Use time timers so that the child can see time passing and can manage himself within the appropriate time span. Teach your child how to use calendars, how to schedule things in her day to make sure that she isn't overlapping things, or, and this is an older child obviously, isn't overlapping things or scheduling things on the wrong day. Make as many of these things as possible visual. That makes a lot more sense to most of our kids than anything that they hear through their ears. Teach your kid to do the most unpleasant thing first. No one likes this idea. It's very unpopular, but it really is a good strategy. If you get the most unpleasant thing out of the way first, then all the rest of what you do is going to be more fun than that was. It's very good for decreasing procrastination. Make sure you use as many visual cues as possible. So if your kid frequently forgets what she is taking to school with her on a particular day, make her a check sheet where you can rub it off every day and check things off. So make sure she has her lunch and make sure she has her homework from the night before, the appropriate books, she's wearing a coat, she has on shoes. Whatever the case may be, make a checklist, make it visual so she can see a picture of each thing she needs to have, and then go out the door. There are some really good books about visual supports for kids, and I will put links to those in the box down below. Have a daily time with your child where you review the day and think about what could have gone differently and what you would like to go different tomorrow. Also look at the child's day and help her to think about what drained her that day and what filled her up, and how can she arrange her days to get more of the things that fill her up and less of the things that drain her. We all need to have a sweet spot in our lives where, of course, we're going to have to do things that are really difficult for us, but hopefully we get to do more things that fill us up. Even if they're hard, the things that fill us up are the ones we want to do more of in our lives whenever possible. Help your child balance that out. So if she has a really hard test in history, then think of something maybe that you can do after school that will kind of balance that out for her. Teach your child to evaluate everything with 2 questions. Is this important, and is this fun? These are important questions because kids who need more dopamine or crave more dopamine are going to want to make everything fun. And yet they know that they need to do things that are important as well, because the fun dries up pretty quickly if you don't have any income or if you're not going to school and you're supposed to be. Help your child balance. Yes, this isn't fun, but it is important. A lot of these last few strategies were for kids who were a little bit older and who need a little more help managing themselves and learning how they're going to function as adults. I know some of these would have helped my brother. I know some of these would help a lot of the kids that I work with now. And so I hope they're helpful to you as well. I put a lot of links down below that I hope will help you. Obviously, I've mentioned it a few times, but please go down in the box and check out what you can check out. Just let yourself explore and investigate and do research, because I think you will be encouraged. There are a lot of things that we can do to help kids who have difficulty with focus, who are impulsive, who are hyperactive. We can make a huge difference. You can make a huge difference. Thank you for caring about the children in your life, and thank you for coming on YouTube to find out what you can do and how you can support those precious kids. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. You would think I live in a kennel. My neighbor's dogs are just always going wild. I don't dig it. That's why I have cats.